So welcome to our second session of Liquidware Unplugged. Today we're going to talk about the cloud virtual desktop market. For anyone that may have just joined us or hasn't been on one of these sessions before, this is really an interactive webinar. You're not going to sit through a ton of presentations and death by PowerPoint or anything like that, even though we try not to do that regularly. But this is a different kind of session. So if you have a question or a comment for us as it goes on, please feel free to direct them via our question or chat window. And what we'll do is, as we cover the topics, we're going to go ahead and unmute you and give you a chance to talk and interact with our panel of experts. We did a brief introduction before. We're joined by Mark Knouse, Patrick Coble, Thomas Miller, and Jason Smith, who are going to take us through today. And I see a couple questions in here. Jason, do you want to pick them out, or do you want me to just go ahead and start reading through them?
Yeah, I think one person's already left. I don't know if they had an appointment, so we can look at one of those first ones. And again, since we had so many people join us, most people on here are from Liquidware, but I'll go back to an introduction from Patrick. Patrick, please introduce yourself. We're glad to have you as a guest on this.
Yep. So I'm Patrick Coble. I'm the VDI hacker. I'm the security nerd, a CTP, a V expert, and I just click and type things and break into stuff.
Thanks. All right, Ray. Looks like we take this first active question from Ben.
Okay.
Well, before that goes, I mean, I guess we had a theme for today too, right? Which was we could bat around and talk about all the different platforms and just some high level pros and cons of each of them and where they stand. So we could do that throughout the way, and we'll circle back around to that main topic, make sure we do cover that. But we could take this first question to stimulate conversation and perhaps add to the panel.
Sure. So Ben had asked he'd like to hear and see how he can use Stratosphere UX in a new environment to make an inventory of the environment and how the data results can be used to create a new workspace for the clients. So I've unmuted Ben. Ben, you can go ahead and chime in if you have anything to add there before we let the panel take it.
Good afternoon.
We can hear you, Ben.
All right.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add, but perhaps you can help me a little way.
Yep. Sure, we'll go ahead and answer the question. Mark Knouse, you want to take that one? Since you've got a demo environment at your fingertips, if you want.
Oh, Stratosphere.
Yep.
Oh, I'm gonna have to turn that over to Tom. He's the
okay.
Tom.
That's a good idea too.
Thanks.
Let's see. Let's share one of my screens here. Well,
there you go, Mr. Miller.
Yep. Well, Tom's getting that ready. So Stratosphere UX stands for Stratosphere User Experience. It's our solution that can help you diagnose environments, but it can also help you prepare for an environment through some fit reports and can give you an idea of what's going on, give you a hardware and software inventory. So that's what the question was centered around. We could do a quick look at that.
Okay, did my screen show up, guys?
Only in blue.
See a little blue streak. Maybe not the whole thing shared out then.
Stand by.
Like a long, skinny monitor.
Now it's a teal streak.
Wow.
That's the beauty of these sessions, guys.
I love it. They're numbered differently than Windows.
There you go.
There you go.
All right, there we go.
So graphs and clicky things.
All kind of fun stuff, right? So this is the console of this is the administration console of Stratosphere UX, and the very first thing that happens when a machine registers itself with Stratosphere is it shows up as inventory. And what's really fun about Stratosphere is everything is inventory. Users are inventory, applications are inventory, subnets are inventory. But if I want to see specifically what this piece of inventory has in terms of hardware and things like that, I can certainly do that as well. I can see where it came from. As you can see, some of these are cloud-based virtual machines. So we know a lot about what's going on inside of that machine, not only in inventory, but if I get into the real guts of Stratosphere UX, we have this concept of what we call inspectors. And these inspectors allow me to dig into these individual facets of my entire environment, whether it's the concept of that user, that piece of inventory that's the user, or the machine, or a really deep login trace. So I can tear into this a lot of different ways to figure out not only configs of the machines, but what they are doing as well. Okay, I think that's along the lines of what we were looking for there. And one of the neat things too is, depending on how you like to see data, some people like to see it visually, and we can certainly show stuff off in a graphical way. Personally, I like to see the raw, gory details. So if I want to put the graph away and just see just raw data, I could do that as well, right? We color code stuff from our experiences. Every one of these things can be popped out to see what's really going on there, right? So CPU queue depth, context switching, there's a plethora of data in here, and we do our best to not overwhelm you with it. But if you see something that you want to dig in on, like Mark Knouse, it's as easy as clicking that statistic, and I'm going to see in a minute what comprised that particular statistic, a drill down, if you will. Okay.
So, Tom, can you show us applications in use in this environment over a period of time?
Yep. So
Thomas?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to show you an interesting one. See this guy right here, Ben Battlesmith? If you see that gamer name online somewhere, that's my son Alex. All right, keep an eye on him for me. But he's a pretty good kid. But you know, if I want to see what's going on here, I can work my way across and see what you know, Alex is working with. But I'm going to drill it on just him by clicking his name, and then we can change the view of what's going on here. So as you can see, there are a lot of different ways that I can look at him. My favorite one, though, is let's just take a 360 look at what's going on with that user. And I can touch the things like the different apps and processes that are going on his machine. I can see if there is any bottlenecking or anything like that going on. But what Jason would like to see is applications. So if I come to the applications inspector, by default, I'm going to see applications for everybody. But one of the things that's neat about Stratosphere is I can add basis to this. So, you know, not only do I want to see the applications, but I want to see the users that are along with those applications. So here we go. We're going to add that basis to it. And now I can drill down and see specifically on any user in the whole system what applications they're using. And I've run across some interesting ones in the days that I've demonstrated this. I was demonstrating it one day and saw that someone was using Farming Simulator 17 inside of Liquidware. But we'll let that go, all right? But here, let's drill down on Ben Battlesmith, and here we go. We're going to see all the apps that Master Alex has used today, and they're all going to be gamer stuff. You're going to see Steam, Discord, Brave browser, right? These are all the things, and here's the workload ranking, right? So I can see how much time that app was in the foreground. I can see how much juice it's using, and yeah, Steam. For once, I've got something to show off that doesn't have Chrome as the top app.
So you can pull these reports by group too. So like the human resources group, you could tell
absolutely, by all means.
In use to help design that base image. Say, I can see that they're actually using the following applications here, and that comes right out of the report. And you say, now I know what my base image looks like, or maybe I know how to assign these with FlexApp to specific groups. Yep. And that's some of the ways you can use the information to start building.
And I just knocked the filter off for the user. That would take us back to an aggregate, you know, an average of everybody that we see, right? So that would, again, in this case, that workload ranking still came to the top, but you can see the other things there that are major workloads too. And you know, I think Jason, you know this as well, but it's important to realize that this tool, Stratosphere UX, evolved from a desktop assessment tool. What we realized early on, 10 years ago, was after the desktop assessment's done, the job's not done. Now we've got this new living, breathing system that continues to evolve and continues to consume more resources and whatnot. And that's when we realized that we needed the other side of the curve too. We need to be able to now see what's going on as we move forward and the thing grows, and be able to tweak and make that stuff go too.
Yep. Thanks, Tom.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Looks like we got a question here about VDI versus DAS, and they're asking for Patrick to chime in on this one.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, I've heard it's supposed to be the year of VDI for the past 5 to 10 years. So I don't know if we've made it there yet. But when it comes to like on premise, on site versus going to desktop as a service, I really think it's all about your applications. The biggest mistake that I've seen is people just going to whatever cloud provider, moving their workloads, their virtual desktops, whatever provider, I don't care if it's Citrix or VMware or whatever, Microsoft, even WVD, is that once you've put in that app, instead of it being less than 1 millisecond away from that backend desktop, and now it's 50 or 100 or 150, and it's constantly fluctuating because the internet is doing Fortnite and Steam things like that, Farming Simulator and stuff like that, and cat videos and Joe Exotic, Tiger King are fighting you for your app performance. So I think that's the biggest problem that I see, is just application performance. I think there's also some command and control, there's some security things, but I think it's really kind of performance that runs most people out of a desktop as a service, is because of that. It's easy to consume from most of the vendors, but it's also, the performance is just not the same in many cases. So
This is that's a good follow-up question from myself to ask you. Out of this, did you have any clients doing or anybody asking you questions about work from home? Hey, I need to rapidly spin up an environment, and did you make recommendations? Or did you see them?
And desktop as a service was like their go-to, right? Because it was like the easiest. It was like click, click, click. We've got another 100 desktops. We got 1,000 desktops. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's definitely, we can all agree on the VDI side, it's easy, right? If you go to any DAS provider and say, I want 1,000 desktops, it's pretty much a lot of clicks. Some of them have some nuances on storage quotas and limits and all types of things you have to uncheck. So if you just go get an Azure account and say, I want 1,000 desktops, you cannot have that happen without a couple support tickets, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to open up all the quotas and stuff like that from a paid account and all that. But I also think there's a lot to go into the security part of it, because there's a lot of people that ramped up on the VPN side. And I've talked about this at a couple sessions recently in some of the Citrix user groups, is it's that performance difference of a virtual desktop session when you have a bad network at Thomas's house with someone gaming all day versus someone not only working. With a VPN, every packet has to ET phone home, every single thing you're doing, especially client server apps, whereas virtual desktop, it's just those screen refreshes, so it's so much better. And then the security side, it's so much more adaptive. There's so many more things you can do with a virtual desktop solution that you can't do with a VPN solution. And I think that has drove a lot of customers, but a lot of people have been trying to expand, and some it's been very easy, some it's been very hard because they moved solutions.
Hey, give us an update on your book. You're working on the book, right?
Yeah, I'm still typing away. I think one thing is I've been trying to like balance like working and booking, and working is what gets the bills to keep booking. So it's a balance, but I've got a couple more chapters knocked out. I made the final line in the sand of 1909. I can't keep changing the Windows build because I started the book when it was 1803, and then it's 1809. And then it's 1903, and then it's 1909. And so and the security features keep making me want to stay as current as I can, but then the book will never get written because there's so much that keeps changing.
Yeah. And the title is, working title is?
Yeah, it's still the VDI lockdown guide. I'm just trying to keep it simple. So it's a step-by-step process, 16 chapters of exactly what to do from optimization to Windows policies, along with microsegmentation, antivirus, monitoring, and then just good Windows Active Directory health things, right? Password policies and stuff like that, and logging policies. It's probably the biggest thing. They've ever opened, and how much time and how much juice, to Tom's point, it's used.
Yep.
So it takes a lot of that out. So this is also kind of a good security and auditing tool when it comes to usage of actual applications versus, Citrix Director is great because you can see what's going on right then, but it's not a lot of historical stuff. vRealize from VMware, it only goes so far too, right? Of seeing what someone's actually done, and then the usage. So it's really cool to see also what applications use the network versus applications that don't.
Cool. I either spoke over you or I didn't hear at one point, and your sound for me came back. I was wondering, the distribution for the book, is it going to be downloadable, or we're a supporter?
So
Liquidware is a supporter of it. We wanted to support Patrick in this, so we'll be handing them out at some point. But
yeah. So I mean, it'll be Amazon ebook, right? And that's one thing. If anyone's ever not wrote a book, that's the one thing I did not know, is that there's actually two formats. So there's ebook, and Kindle can be its own, and there could even be two versions of that. And then there's the actual print version, which is a completely different version that has different page breaks, different dimensions, different everything. And it's not just Microsoft Word Control-P, your book's done, right? Like, it doesn't work like that. So I wish it would have been. I'd been done long ago.
All right, we've got some additional questions that are coming in. What would be Aaron asked, what would be the best product, a daily VDI product for a daily VDI report of a user's login summary?
Isn't that just going to that like users tab? Like, doesn't that have like a good one?
If I can see, whoops, need to share it again, don't I? All right, hang on. There we go. I was banging around here looking at some other stuff too while we were talking.
All right, I'll let you pull that up. Jason or Thomas, he's asking, I can answer this other one while you're looking for that one. And it is, so what's required for the infrastructure, I believe. So they ask about the agent. So yeah, there is an agent that runs on the endpoints, is the best way to gather full metrics end to end. You would also want to run an agent on your VDI sessions, for example, on your Citrix Zen desktop or Zen app. So you start to get an end-to-end picture, right? That's the endpoint, that's the VDI session, and you can also put our agents on application servers and other points along the way, and you can get a holistic, and that way you get a holistic UX score. But the best way is to get an agent on the endpoint. And that's even like, so we support iGel as an example, and Stratadesk. We have purpose-built agents even for them that run on the Linux OS. We can gather the usage metrics from those endpoint devices, even down to that final mile, to give you an end-to-end perspective.
Yep, so the rule of thumb is, wherever you're delivering Windows, please put our agent. And it's a Windows play. And in reference to this particular question, we're looking at data from today, and here's where the graph comes in handy. I can quickly see who's having a bad day and who's having a good day. I can touch and see who this is, right? And that's a username called @home, all right? But if I want to see what the login trace of this person is, that's what we've got down here. And real quick, login delay, how long did it take to discover the domain controller? How long did group policy take to run? 20 seconds. All right, but as you work your way down through these, you'll see, just different quickie stats. But the real meat and potatoes part of this is, let's see what the actual login looks like. And I'm going to drill into Master Alex here real quick and show you the kind of stuff we return on a login. Again, depending on how you like to look at things, maybe you like to look at the graph, maybe you like to see real stuff. This is pretty common. Mostly what we see in a good login is everything happens lickety split after auth, and then, you know, all the post login stuff. So let's get rid of the graph. But here's sort of a summary. But as you see, I call this the steps overview, but what I'm really interested in are the events and processes. So tell me what was going on during that login, right? And if I knock the filters off of this, here comes the gory details. This is anything and everything that you would want to know about this particular login. And it's probably going to be a couple of hundred rows coming out of the appliance. Yeah, in this case, a little over or a little under 200 rows. But here we go. Now, I know that's a lot. And as a matter of fact, I'll make this offer today. Anybody that gets up and buys Stratosphere UX today, I'll send you an ultra-wide monitor to run this on, because it's a great excuse to have an ultra-wide monitor, right? But
good point about the data. You can export this data too, right, Tom?
Sure enough, I can
To
send
Excel
this
or others, and I'm asking another question from the audience while I'm asking that.
But you know, here it is. What do you want to know? And when I show this product, I like to tell people you can run, but you can't hide from Stratosphere, because if it happened during the login, I've got it here. And to me, what's really awesome is this has no impact on the login speed. You know, we're not hooking things and inspecting things as they go by or anything like that. But if I work my way up Alex's timeline here, you know, this is not a domain login or anything, so there's nothing real juicy here. But you know, I can see what group policy was applied. We've made some enhancements just recently to the product so that now I can see not only how many cores are in the machine, how many were being used, what's the total percentage of CPU utilization across all those cores, how much memory was being used. So real quick, I can figure out fast here, is this guy having a bad day because he's constrained for resources? And I don't think in Master Alex's case that's the case. If he's being restrained, he's just making this thing do a lot of stuff. And I'm going to go yell at him right now because I'm an anti-Google guy, and that should not be on his machine. Google update. But I may not even have to go up his room and do that, because one of the things I can do with UX is I can extinguish processes remotely that I don't want running too. So I think I just may have to do that. All right, sorry, I'm digressing a bit, but lots and lots of detail here if you want to see it, I guess would be my answer here, right?
Great. Aaron has a follow-up question. We want to take Aaron off mute. This is his second question. We can have him.
You know what? I've been trying to, and for some reason, it's not allowing me to put him in. I'm not sure how he's dialed in or whatnot.
All right. No, that's fine. Okay, here's a general question, Tom, for you again, probably for Stratosphere. They have a slow connection on a VDI desktop launch from a Horizon client. Can I see what's happening during the Horizon client connection?
Sure. So one of the inspectors we have here is remote display, and this is a pretty important inspector for Citrix or for VMware, regardless, because what I'm going to see here in this inspector is what's actually going on with that remote display protocol. You know, that however you want to look at it, the last mile, or I'm starting to look at this as the first mile. But what's the protocol? Here's a PC over IP connection. Wow, this one was connected for 1,716 minutes. If I work my way across, I can see, you know, all kinds of statistics on it here, but most importantly, the session latency, right? And this latency is measured from that endpoint. Even though I don't have my agent on that endpoint, one of the things the Horizon agent allows me to do through PC over IP is compute the latency from wherever that box is out there. You know, I'm sitting out in the garden 121 feet from my Wi-Fi access point. No wonder it's slow, right? And now you can't see it here just yet, but we're just about to add another column here that tells us what the distance is from the access point to the endpoint and the access point name. So if you want to diagnose work at home workers that are crying because, you know, that age old, it's slow. Well, I'll tell you why it's slow. You're sitting out back or you're at the coffee shop with 5,000 other people. And here it is. You can run, but you can't hide from Stratosphere.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Tom.
Sure.
All right, getting back to the topic of today's webinar, I'm going to share out a screen too, if I remember how to do it in this format. Can I don't know if
I think
pass
the
the ball to
toughest
me.
part is they just keep moving the buttons all over the place.
Yeah, they do. And then
And
you
like,
use
and
five
then how it
different
hides
ones.
stuff and shrinks stuff and puts it over here and there.
Exactly. Use 5 different ones a week, and then you don't know where they went. So I didn't want to get in the weeds too much today on the webinar, but I did want to go back to this topic and that we proposed, and that would be, you know, just at a high level, what are some of the ways that you can deliver Windows desktops with virtualization these days? And it's not meant, this is not meant to be a very granular checklist, right? But just to give you a general idea where things are in this arena. And Patrick, I'll give you a chance to look at the Citrix column, see whether or not you agree with it. As Mark talks about the first column a little bit, you don't have to talk about exactly what's in that first column, Mark, but can you just give us an update, Mark, on Amazon and their offerings in this area, and how, and some general strengths that you think that they might have?
Sure. Thanks, Jason. And hello, everybody out there. And I'd like to also say hello to Michael Keene, and thanks for texting me, Michael, while I'm trying to speak. So glad to be here, guys. This is a fun format. Okay, cool. So, you know, Amazon broke into the desktop as a service world back in 2014, I believe late March of that year. And at first, when it happened, I was discussing this with a large pharma VDI service manager, and he said, you know, I really don't want to recreate some of the stuff I did in the past. What do you think about, you know, their new offering? I said, well, I didn't have much faith in it. And like Patrick said, it's all about the apps. And I said, it's never going to work. So here we are in 2020, and this customer's up to 30,000 seats. I guess I was wrong. So point is, it's matured a lot in 6 years. They were very aggressive in getting feature out. As Jason writes here, the first major player in turnkey DAS. Anyone could go in with a credit card and get through a few prompts and spin up a workspace. As far as the workspace management, profiles, app delivery, and UX monitoring, there are some light features included within Amazon Workspaces. The entire user profile is redirected to the D drive, and that D drive is snapshotted every 12 hours. In some cases, it could be good enough. With Amazon AppStream, you could also use application persistence for your profiles, user and application profile settings. So there are inherent solutions there. As far as app delivery, they have a product called WAM, which is used in very small niche environments. For the enterprise, typically goes with their own ESD solution. UX monitoring, they have what's called Cloud Watch and Cloud Trail. Cloud Watch is going to give you all the environmental statistics, in session latency, things like that. It kind of falls a little short with what we love about Stratosphere UX, and that's that hardcore end user computing DNA. So that's where Liquidware really comes in and brightens that up. And they have another product called Cloud Trail, which monitors and audits on the audit trails of access. So it's a little high level overview there, Jason.
Yep. So we'll work to update what I had put in here as no included options. Well, I guess beyond standard is what I meant there. A profile just to make things stick and some things, but purpose-built things for the desktop environment. Amazon. So that's Amazon Workspaces and Amazon AppStream. Patrick, you want to give us a recap on and you don't have to agree with this column. This is something I came up with back in January, just some high level on Citrix and where they are today.
Yeah, no, I mean, the good thing on the Citrix front is the compatibility with all the cloud providers. Each one, the pros and cons may be there, but the ultimate thing is whoever your cloud provider is for all your other things, you probably want your broker in that same cloud, right? There are a lot of instances where you may want a broker that's in a different location, a completely different ecosystem than your virtual desktops, but there's so much benefit for it to actually be there. And then it's also one support structure and everything else. So yeah, Citrix has got lots of flexibility, which is probably their biggest difference out here. And then if you see like Nutanix over there with Xi, exact same thing too, right? Flexibility galore of where you can do your stuff at, which I think is really important, especially in this time when you know you need to get these types of things going. So yeah, I mean, it's and especially long enterprise history for sure. I think that's a good little chart.
Okay. And I'll take the WVD column. We saw WVD coming on, and it was going to be remote modern infrastructure, for RDS and others. And we've been a partner with them at Liquidware for quite some time. So we've been in the know since before they, started building up their arsenal and acquiring tools like FSLogix and others. And we've been in that partnership program. So we've known fairly closely what's going on with WVD. In this case, we're talking about native WVD. When you would run it and host it on Azure, the offering, you could also use your entitlements under Citrix or VMware on this chart to run the multi-session Windows 10 under that. So that's mainly what we're looking at in this column is WVD. And it's cloud only, but there is an Azure Stack way of running it. Mark, do you know if that's currently out? Be able to run it on-prem as well?
I don't believe it's out yet. I'm not sure though.
That's a planned one where you could actually run it on-prem. Yep. And so there's also things outside of this, chart that is when I look and I hear from the community, people spinning up WVD, is that you really need an expert on staff. We know plenty of those, and Patrick knows plenty of those people that have gotten in and rolled up their sleeves, and they know some PowerShell scripting and some other things to get it done and get it implemented. But they are fast working. We know on new generations of what they're doing. They just launched a version here in the spring to help manage WVD accordingly. So we're seeing it becoming increasingly more like an enterprise type solution, and we're looking forward to how it's going to be shifting the thought that maybe you do only need a turnkey solution from Microsoft to do these things, but Citrix, for example, VMware certainly have a leg up on them. So it's interesting thing to watch there. And after all, they're Microsoft, just like we've seen RDS over the years. People are going to want to run it. People are going to say, I have them licensed for it, I want to run it. So it's going to have some adoption.
Especially the way they bundled it and the licenses and the cows and stuff, right? Like you quote own it. You're paying to the rights to run the VM, right? So it's just consumption based at that point because you've already paid for it with your Office 365 or Microsoft 365 licenses. So it's a very interesting concept that I think is going to keep continually growing.
My perception out of this whole work from home shift is that a lot of people, might have thought about WVD, but a lot of them also went straight for something like Citrix because they knew that it was going to work within hopefully a week of spending some time spinning it up. They weren't going to have to script things. So the current state of things is that people are looking seriously at WVD, and they're looking forward to the updates they just had and the updates that are going to be coming to make that an even stronger offering.
Yep.
Who wants to take a Nutanix column? Mark?
Oh, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do
it. Column, yep.
They've got a really interesting solution, and as Patrick said, you do have that flexibility and some amazing engineers over there as well. Going down this list as far as the workspace management profiles, app delivery, UX monitoring, they are a alliance partner of ours, and they have a portion of our Profile Unity product within their stack. So that's really cool. And then having everything integrated with Prism for monitoring and stuff like that, it is a really one-stop shop.
Yep, and we're also seeing NetApp get into the space with the acquisition of Coil Jumper. You know, not exactly the same thing, but it, you know, sort of a, you know, a hardware thought of company coming into the market too. They're not on this list. Also, could mention in this area, this is in alphabetical order. W, where would W come in? It would come in after VMware. So I was going to say, I'll go ahead and give a shout out to WorkSpot since Michael Keene pinged you. And, you know, they're an offering not listed in here, but you might want to check them out as well. They've got compelling offerings in the market as well. Who wants to take a stab at VMware?
I guess, you know, since I work there, I probably should, huh?
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
maybe.
You know, supported clouds. It's probably the most, I guess, just from a longevity perspective, maybe the most flexible one. You know, the one thing to remember is, and I'm, you know, this is, I got my, you can't see it, but I got my salesman hat on a little bit. If you work your way all the way across this grid, there's one very common thing here, isn't there? It's Windows. And that's where we play. So, you know, not only can I help you within these places, but I can help you move around from one place to the next very seamlessly as well. Feedbacks I'm getting from customers, some of which I actually did call on, you know, almost 10 years ago now when I did work at VMware here in the patch in Ohio. You know, they've, not to sound fanboy, but I am. When I came to Liquidware, I had the, you know, the VMware tattoo and not the Citrix tattoo. So I was the, you know, the guy from the other side of the alley. But you know, the hypervisor, it just works, and there's a lot of cool features in the hypervisor, and you can move stuff around. A lot of the things that come in the suite, the big, you know, the big bundle, some of them I'm having customers come back to me and say, you know, maybe we should take a look at that Flex app thing again. You know, maybe we should take a look at the Stratosphere UX thing again, because and I think it's probably true of all of the partner, or I mean, well, yeah, you know, partner supplied pieces, is that they're specific to their platform. And I don't want to say that they're trying to lock you into that platform, but I guess I just did, where I'm gonna not really care where you go with that.
Yeah.
But from a cloud perspective, you know, I've got customers I know in Microsoft and Amazon's, not familiar with any in Google though.
Sure.
Well, was that a rambling answer, and did I hit the spot?
It was a good answer. It was a good answer, and certainly we got to give them creds for coming in there and being the disruptor versus Citrix years ago, and causing a lot of innovation in the space. And their acquisition of app volumes works out for some people, and some people come over to us and they want something a little different. And we provide that with Flex app, and same with, as you touched on, monitoring, and the same way with their UEM capabilities. And where we're different, and people say, well, where are you different, right? So we run across all these environments. And when you get an enterprise that has a little bit of A and B, for example, or they want to move from one to the other, if you had Liquidware, your apps stick with the users. You don't have to repackage them. The profiles go across, even from Windows, from 7 to 10 and any version of 10. And it runs at a higher level almost all over all of this. So if you need to rapidly burst scale and you want to say, hey, I've got Citrix environments, but for this new work from home initiative, I want to go after an Amazon workspace environment or to deliver some things through AppStream, those same users in that organization could log off Citrix and into Amazon, or maybe they didn't. Maybe they never had. In the case of Washington Metro, the rail authority up there, maybe a lot of those users never had a Citrix desktop, and they wanted to go into that, and so they could come into that desktop from a hardware, from a physical PC, and have their experience follow them and rapidly onboard.
One of my large customers here in Columbus, I can't name them, but has been a Profile Unity user for several years now, and from a work at home initiative, they're pushing a lot of their users up into Citrix on AWS.
Yeah.
And the same Flex apps they used on premises are the same Flex apps they're using upstairs in the AWS cloud as well. And it's very easy to move your persona because you really don't move it. You're just kind of using it wherever you need to use it. And then Mark and I had the good fortune here a while back of working with a large educational customer on using those same types of Flex apps on AppStream. It's hard to believe that it's that universal that I can just unplug that Flex app from a from a a VMware View environment and use it in AWS or use it in Nutanix or use it in WVD, but you can't because we're operating at the Windows level, and that's just that.
Right. Okay, great. And that
Hey,
stimulates
Jason,
conversation and some questions too, but go ahead, Mark.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to, from my side, just give feedback across all these buckets because I often get asked, which one do you like the most? And I have a lot of experience with probably VMware, Citrix, Amazon, and now WVD. And my answer is not the typical consultant one. It depends. It's find what works best for you, define your user requirements, but don't forget about your operational model. If you built tooling to support Terraform, CloudFormation, Ansible, all these other, Chef, Puppet, any of these DevOps platforms, you've built that capacity and competency in-house, that's going to be a big driver for you. So don't forget about your operations. While one may have a cool feature here and there, if you're not going to use that feature and your operation team has to learn yet another set of regex or code deployment tools, it may not be worth it in the long run. It's got to fit not only the business requirements, but also the operational requirements, and then lastly, the end user requirements.
Yep.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, looks like we got a question from Rick. He said, WVD is moving very fast, talking about the development, I would guess. How does it compare with AWS Workspaces and AppStream if you were to use that together with Profile Unity and associated products? Mark?
Wow, okay. So again, I would go back to driving the requirements. To do a bake-off and go one-to-one, having Profile Unity there with FlexApp will allow you to roam between any of these, as Jason said. I think when you add a tool like FlexApp and Profile Unity, you empower yourself to now make smart decisions. So you avoid that lock-in. And then to my point earlier, if you did decide to go multi-cloud and you then shifted and built a different competency, having tools like Profile Unity and FlexApp already in your stack just make it that much easier. In addition, if a new feature comes out, say a different pool model, and you want to investigate that, having Profile Unity and FlexApp already there, it's a simple click and go. Whereas if you didn't have that, you'd be building a whole profile management and application delivery system. Going feature for feature, I would just say define your requirements. Although I'm very unhappy with what has happened in the world today, WVD is getting a stress test, and I know they've had some massive scale happen, and if anything good comes out, I guess they're finding all the bugs and really putting it to its test. So it will become a more mature product, post the COVID situation we're in. Where Amazon Workspaces, you've got a mature cloud. It's running PC over IP. They're also coming out with their own workspaces streaming protocol for those folks in that high-end design who need relative mouse support. RDP does not support that. So that's something you may want to think about. So I hope that I could go on for a few hours about this, but my advice, put Profile Unity and FlexApp in the mix.
Yeah, I'm an AWS consultant. It started this year, or last so for a half year now, and I'm trying to straighten the proposition for the cloud desktop, and
cool.
add you to the basket.
Great, thanks. Great question. Ray, where do we stand?
Let's see. Well, One thing that I think we kind of touched on a little bit, and we couldn't get Aaron unmuted at that point in time, and actually I still can't get him unmuted, but he had touched on, you know, the emailing of reports. And now we talked about exporting them to Excel and whatnot, but he was talking about emailing them and elevating them to management. And I know that we also have some dashboards in Stratosphere that have been developed recently, looking at logins and some of the work from home things. And I thought maybe that might be kind of good to share that as well, to kind of touch back on Aaron's question.
Tom, you want to round that out? Tom, you want to round that out?
I'm sorry there, I was muted. Pass that to me one more time, Ray. I'm sorry.
You got it. Don't be sorry. There you go.
I'm sorry, the question.
Oh, the question.
distracted.
Aaron was talking about Stratosphere when we were back there, and we talked about some of the reports, specifically around login. And he was asking if they could be emailed to management. And I know we talked about being able to export them and whatnot, but I also know that we have some new dashboards and things like that that we've built out, especially around work from home, that might be of use for that kind of scenario as well.
Sure, absolutely. So any of the Stratosphere, and am I on? Did I get the screen shared okay
Yep,
this time?
I can see it.
I can see it over there now. So any of the screens you see here, where I'm over here in the advanced inspectors, the export button will pop that out to a spreadsheet. And spreadsheet kind of handy. I can, it's kind of my click and time, right? And as well, anytime you throw one out into a spreadsheet in Stratosphere, it's going to be stored here in your My tab as well. And that's a handy thing to do if you're banging around looking at stuff and you just want to preserve a particular place. We also have the concept of dashboards and spot checks. And these are all drag and drop configurable, right? So just about any statistic that I have in the system, I can build into some kind of a dashboard here. And if you'd like the dashboard to be something that is, you know, on a big screen, up and running all the time, that's you can design these kinds of things that way. Some of these particular screens here where I show just trends, where I'm just kind of watching certain facets of my environment. These are some more screens that you may find useful in a NOC kind of environment, right? So totally configurable for what you want to keep an eye on here, right? And then as well, you know, pretty stuff that I can mail out. So let me go over here to diagnostics, and I'm sorry, I'm moving kind of quick here. Stuff's not catching up. But as far as reports go, we have today 287 different canned reports in the system that I can run at any time. Some of these, as you can see here, I'm running some of these daily, right? For instance, machines overdue for an agent callback. Hey, where'd he go? I may want to know those kinds of things. But as I work my way on down the list here, there are, well, let's show the categories. That would probably be the easier way. You know, the typical type of management reports that you may want to see, diagnostic stuff, and there's kind of two sides to the product too. Remember, not only is there UX, but there's fit, and fit is the assessment, right? Assess my environment side of the product. But any of these can be ran on demand or ran on a schedule and emailed out.
Good.
Great. So I think that's kind of taken us through most of our questions. I know we're over on time by about 5 minutes. So thank you, Jason, Tom, Mark, and Patrick for joining us. Again, I'd like to remind you, we have recorded this session, and we will make it available on both our YouTube channel and on our community site. You can get to that at community.liquidware.com. If you have any further questions for us, you can feel free to email us at unplugged@liquidware.com. We'll make sure we get that out to anyone, or take that the conversation out onto the community site. We've got a thread out there that has that. We'll again be posting the recording there. We've got a lot of experts on there beyond even what we have on our panel here, and a lot of customers, and have a lot of feedback out there as well. Visit our website. You can grab downloads of our product, other resources, white papers, customer success stories, all kinds of things like that, other videos, and reach out to us on social media at Liquidware. Hashtag unplugged. We'd love to see those questions and feedbacks. If you participated today, that'd be great. Also, if you participated today, keep an eye out. Anybody that asked the question, I'm going to go ahead and send them a nifty Liquidware t-shirt or something here. So I'll be reaching out to you, so keep an eye out for that as well. So any other comments, anyone else?
No, thanks to the panel. Glad to have you all on. A great conversation, and greatly all added to the discussion, including the audience questions that we got. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. And Patrick, I can't wait to read that book.
Yeah, me either.
All right, stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.